Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Good
Rabbi.
morning.
We are learning Mishna Nedarim, Perek K, Chapter 5, Mishnah Aleph, Mishnah 1. Today's learning should be a schus for Refuah Shalema for Gavriel ben Etel Gita. Okay. Now, a quick introduction to this Mishnah. In the times of the Mishnah, houses did not open into the street, but into a shared courtyard. Got that? Anyone who owned a house in a courtyard was considered a partner in the courtyard itself. So we're going to have a situation here of partners. But not partners because, they bought something together. They're partners because each one has a house in a courtyard. It's a shared courtyard. And they are considered partners in the courtyard. Okay? So now, the situation is like this. Hashutafin shanadru hanazeh mizeh. Partners that made a neder not to benefit from each other. Okay, good neighbors. Neighbors are really getting along. One says to the other one, you cannot have benefit from me. Or each one says to the other one, I won't have benefit from you. Okay? That's what they both did. They made a neder, from whatever direction it starts from. They made a neder not to have a benefit from each other. All right. Well, they cannot benefit from each other. And but they share a courtyard. Right? You can't get to your house unless you go into the courtyard. But if they cannot benefit from each other, and we learned previously that if I cannot benefit from you, I cannot walk on your property. So what's the story with the courtyard? So says the Mishnah, Asurin likanes lakatzer. They can't walk into the courtyard. The way of looking at the courtyard is that it's not like I have part of the courtyard, you have part of the courtyard. According to this opinion, you have a share everybody has a share in the entire courtyard. Everybody has a share in that entire courtyard. And generally, it's understood that even though I have a share in the entire courtyard, you can use it. You can do what's normally done in a courtyard. But in this case, if they cannot benefit from each other, then they can't walk onto each other's property. That's what we had before. And the whole courtyard is everyone's property. Everyone has a share in the entire courtyard. Therefore, the Mishnah says they can't walk in. They can't walk into the courtyard. They're going to have to somehow or another find a way to take off the neder. But otherwise, they're in big trouble. Next, that's the first opinion. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Zeh nichnas l'seich shaloi, zeh nichnas l'seich shaloi. Each one walks into what is his. This one enters his part of the chatzar, and this one enters his part of the chatzar. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says a very interesting idea. According to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, when people share a courtyard, what happens is like this. When I walk into the courtyard to get to my house, at that time, it's my area. It's my area at that time, considered mine. It's not shared. When I'm using the courtyard, when I'm using a part of the courtyard for my needs, at that time, it's mine. And therefore, when I walk into the courtyard, I'm not walking into your courtyard, because when I am walking in the courtyard to get to my house, which is standard usage of the courtyard, this part of the courtyard that I'm walking on getting to my house is mine. And therefore, I am not entering into your property, and therefore I'm not transgressing the neder. So that's the argument. Tanakama says you can't walk into the courtyard because the courtyard belongs to the courtyard. Everyone has a share in the entire courtyard, so therefore I'm walking into yours just like into mine. And Rabbi ben Yaakov says no. Rabbi ben Yaakov says I'm not walking into your courtyard because when I walk into the courtyard to get to my house, that part of the courtyard is mine for the time that I need it. And that's a very interesting concept. And therefore, I'm not going into yours, and I'm not having benefit from you. Now, here's a very important thing to know. The Mishnah refers to the Bartanur brings down that this case we're talking about right now is very specific. The Mishnah refers to a small courtyard. Thus, they cannot simply force each other to divide it, with each taking a separate area, because each part would be too small to be useful. Since dividing is not an option, Rabbi ben Yaakov allows each one to use the entire courtyard. The point is like this, and we'll get into the details. the point is that so we got to. So even Rabbi Yaakov says at the end of the day you can walk in. However, if there is an option, if there's a better option than that, Rabbi Yaakov says you got to use it. The better option would be that instead of basically saying that we share this courtyard, let's assume it's just the two of us in this courtyard. Instead of just saying that each one of us shares the whole court, each one of us, we share the courtyard, but when we want to use it, it's considered, that part's considered mine. If there's a better option, you got to go with the better option. The better option is like this. If there's a way that we can say, okay, we're dividing up the courtyard. We're not having anymore this kind of setup. I own one part of the courtyard, and you own the other part of the courtyard. If you can go ahead and work things out like that, then the halacha is you have to do that. Instead of working with this whole idea of it's mine, or we share it all, and you can't go in, or you could go in because where I go in is mine for the time. If there's a way of basically settling this issue and that we can split the courtyard in a way that I own my part of the courtyard, you own part of the courtyard, and that's how we get to our houses, that's what you got to do. Now, how do you determine whether you can do that or not? So it says like this. If the courtyard is big enough for each one to have an area of 4 square amos, 4 square cubits, in front of his doorway, which would be for loading and unloading packages, plus an additional 4 square amos in the middle of the courtyard for other uses, then Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov says you've got to split up the courtyard. If I can go ahead, basically the point is instead we force them to divide it between them, and each one will be allowed to walk only in his part of the courtyard. If there is enough area to make call it a fair division, a useful division, a division of the courtyard in a way that we will be able to have our basic needs met. I could have 4 cubits in front of my house to do things in front of my house. I got 4 cubits inside the chutzner to do what I need to do. If that can work out, then the halacha is that's what you have to do. You've got to split it up in a way that I own my part, you own your part, and we actually can't walk into the other one's part because we have a neder not to benefit from each other. But at the same time, we'll have, each one has our specific area that we actually own. It's not shared. And that's what we use to take care of our needs. So according to the Talmud Kama, that's going to be a great solution because otherwise you won't be able to do anything. According to Eliezer ben Yaakov, even though, so machlekes in the beginning of the Mishnah, the arguing is where you can't do that. It's too small to divide up. So when it's too small to divide up, Tanna Kama says, then nothing you can do. You can't divide up. Each one has a share in the whole courtyard. No one can go in. Eliezer ben Yaakov says, no, you can go in because we say we have this understanding that the way these things work are that when I am using it, it's mine at that period of time. That's all in a small courtyard that you can't divide up. But if it's large enough to divide up, as we said with the dimensions mentioned before, then everybody agrees that you have to actually divide up the courtyard. I own one half, you own the other half. That takes care of our needs of getting into our houses, and because we have a neder on each other, no one can walk into the other one's part. Now, the Mishnah then says, "Ushneim asurim lahamit shamrei chayim v'tanur ulegadol tarnagolim." Both of them are forbidden to set up a mill, an oven, or to grow chickens. What's the point? The point is like this. There are certain things that are not typically done in a courtyard. People do not set up a mill in a courtyard where that's in front of a shared courtyard where people live around. You don't set up an oven there. Yeah. You don't set up a mill there. You don't raise chickens there. If I give you permission, then you could. But you can't do it on your own. It's not an assumed right of the usage of the courtyard. You need permission from the other one to do it. Says the Mishnah, if each one of us can't benefit from each other, we can't give each other permission to do these things because then we're benefiting each other. So at the end of the day, even according to Eliezer ben Yaakov, I can't get the right to use it for that because if I get the right from you, I'll be benefiting from you. So even though Eliezer ben Yaakov says I can walk in because I don't need your permission to walk in. That's my automatic right. But now you want to start doing other things that I need your permission. I can't do it because if I have to get your permission to use something and I get it, that's called I benefit from you, and we both can't benefit from each other. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Why can't
Ending off on that positive note.
No,